The call to Greg's office felt routine, nothing out of the ordinary. I had been with the company for 16 years, and sure, things were changing, but that was just the way of business, right? You adapt, you move forward. At least, that's what I thought. When I sat down, Greg didn't waste any time. He shuffled some papers around, looked up, and then dropped the bomb. They were letting me go from my division director role. After all this time, I was being replaced. And not just by someone with more experience or who had been in the industry longer. No, it was some kid, Ben Cummings, barely out of college and not even 30. I'd never heard of him before, but apparently he had the right energy. Greg tried to soften it with buzzwords like new direction and innovative thinking. The company was looking for youthful energy to lead the way. That's how he put it. Youthful energy. It felt like a slap in the face. Like I wasn't enough anymore. My career wasn't a job to me, it was my life. And now, they were giving it away to some kid who still probably thought networking was just a buzzword for LinkedIn. I didn't know what to say. I didn't even know if I could say anything. My stomach twisted in knots, but I managed to smile. Greg said I'd be transitioning into a senior advisor role, which was supposed to sound like a promotion, but it felt more like being put out to pasture. As I walked out of his office, my feet dragging with every step, I couldn't shake the feeling that everything I'd worked for was crumbling down around me. I sat at the back of the room, arms crossed, watching Ben try to take control. He was saying all the right things, using the corporate lingo like he'd been born to it. "Let's circle back on this team," he said, voice a little too high-pitched, like he was trying to sound confident. "We're looking for innovative solutions here, so let's get creative." I wanted to roll my eyes. This kid barely looked older than my son. Now, he was supposed to be my boss? It didn't sit right. He started going through the numbers, fumbling with the portfolio details. There were names of clients he butchered like he'd never seen them before. He mispronounced Giordano, Marco Giordano, one of our biggest accounts, and I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. He had no clue who Marco was, what kind of clout he held. I shifted in my seat, my fingers tapping against my knee. I was dying to correct him. It was a small thing, a slip-up, but Marco Giordano didn't get overlooked. His name wasn't just another line on a spreadsheet, it meant something. But I kept quiet. I bit my lip, watching as Ben moved on to the next point, oblivious. I'd given up trying to fight for my role, but watching this kid stumble felt like watching a car wreck in slow motion. My phone buzzed in my pocket. The vibration was sharp, pulling my attention away from Ben's blabbering. I glanced down. The name on the screen made my pulse quicken. Marco Giordano. I hadn't heard from him in months. My stomach twisted. This wasn't some casual check-in. Something was wrong. I tried to focus on the meeting again, but Ben was starting to unravel. He kept mixing up details, throwing numbers around like they were just filler. His words were empty, like he didn't even understand the weight behind them. I could feel the frustration building. I was itching to step in, but I stayed still. Ben fumbled through another section, his confidence cracking with every word. I didn't want to, but I had to correct him. "Actually, Ben, it's Giordano with an O at the end," I said, the words slipping out before I could stop them. He glanced up at me, blinking like he hadn't heard me at first. Right, got it," he said quickly, waving me off like I was some overzealous assistant, not the person who had been managing this account for years. I gritted my teeth, sitting back in my chair. I watched him try to act like he had everything figured out, while I could see the wheels falling off. Ben wasn't ready for this, and I wasn't about to watch him make a mess of everything. My phone buzzed again. I glanced down, praying it was something, anything, that would pull me away from this train wreck of a meeting. It was Marco again. The message was brief. "We need to talk. Urgent." The blood drained from my face. This was the opportunity I'd been waiting for. If Marco was asking for a meeting, it was a chance for me to do what Ben clearly couldn't. I stood up, ignoring the questions Ben shot at me as I grabbed my things. "I'll be back," I said, walking out of the room before he could protest. The wheels were already in motion, and if Ben couldn't steer this ship, I would. The call with Marco went smoothly, at least as smoothly as a conversation with an angry client can go. He was already frustrated with the changes Ben had made, and I could hear it in his voice. The proposal? A mess. It cut corners in places I never would have allowed. Marco wasn't just some client. He was one of my top accounts, a big fish. And right now, he was circling, looking for any excuse to bolt. I'm not going to sit here and let this slide, Marco said, his voice low but tight. If the company doesn't fix this proposal, I'm done. I'll take my business elsewhere, and you know how bad that would hurt you. I didn't need him to spell it out for me. Losing Marco would be a disaster, not just for Ben, but for the whole damn company. I kept my voice calm, controlled, like I knew exactly what he needed to hear. I understand, Marco. I'll get this straightened out. I'll make sure the company comes back with a proposal that works for you. Give me a little time to handle it. He didn't say anything for a beat, then sighed, sounding less like a raging bull and more like a man who was just tired of the game. All right, I'll give you another shot, but only if you're the one handling my account moving forward. I'm not dealing with anyone else. Got it? I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. This was my moment to step in, to take control of the one thing Ben had no grip on. I couldn't let this chance slip. Understood, I said. You'll have what you need. After the call ended, I leaned back in my chair, feeling that rush of adrenaline. I was already thinking about the next steps, already planning my move. Marco's trust in me wasn't just an opportunity, it was a lifeline. If Marco walked, Ben wouldn't have a leg to stand on. I grabbed my coat and headed back to the office, my mind working through every possible scenario. As soon as I walked in, I could hear Ben's voice floating down the hallway. He was trying to smooth things over with the team, playing the part of the new leader, but I could tell he wasn't convincing anyone. His words were hollow, like he was trying to make people believe in him just by saying the right things. It wouldn't last. I knew that. I stopped outside the door for a second, listening, the weight of everything pressing in on me. The sinking feeling in my stomach wouldn't go away. I knew the company was in trouble, and I couldn't shake the thought that my old team might be next on the chopping block. But I didn't have time to dwell on that. I had a bigger fish to fry. The wheels were in motion now. I'd already started plotting my next move. Ben might be in charge, but I was about to take back what was mine. The senior advisor role felt more like a cage than anything else. They'd given me a corner office, a cramped little box with a view of the parking lot, but no real purpose. The action happened elsewhere, in the space I used to occupy, where Ben was leading the charge like a man with no idea where he was going. I spent my days watching it all unfold from a distance, like a spectator at a wreck I couldn't stop. The younger team members were struggling, their faces confused, unsure of how to move forward. They came to me for advice, knowing I was the one who had been steering the ship for years. But I wasn't allowed to help. Not really. I was just a shadow in the corner, told to stay in the background while Ben made the calls. Every time something went wrong, they sent me in to clean up the mess. And I did. But it was getting harder to bite my tongue, to hold back the urge to step in and take back what was mine. I started keeping a mental list. Every mistake Ben made, every little slip-up, and they were piling up. The cracks in his leadership were becoming more obvious, and I knew it was only a matter of time before the whole thing came crashing down. One afternoon, Ben came to me. He was standing in my doorway, looking like he hadn't slept in days. His shirt wrinkled, his tie a little too loose around his neck. "Hey, I need your help with something," he said, his voice edged with desperation. "There's this proposal for a new client. I'm not sure He stopped, his words trailing off like he didn't want to admit it. I looked up from my desk, where I'd been pretending to do something productive. I didn't say anything at first, just raised an eyebrow and waited. Ben shifted on his feet, clearly uncomfortable. I'm floundering here, and I need someone to help me put this together. I leaned back in my chair, staring at him. He was trying to act like he had everything under control, but I could see through it. His hands were shaking slightly as he flipped through the proposal, his brow furrowed in a way that made it clear he was out of his depth. I could have said no. I could have let him sink, but I didn't. Because that's not who I was. I wasn't going to let him fail, at least not while I still had a hand in the game. "All right," I said, pushing back from my desk and walking over to where he was standing. "Let's see what you've got." I glanced over the proposal, picking up on the things Ben had missed. Small details, but things that mattered. He hadn't done his homework. There were gaps in the plan, things that would have made any client second-guess us. I pointed them out, making suggestions along the way while Ben nodded and jotted down notes. But I could tell he wasn't getting it. He was just writing down whatever I said, like he was trying to memorize the answers to a test he wasn't ready for. As Ben scrambled, trying to keep up with me, I realized something. I wasn't the boss anymore, but I was still in control, not because I had the title, but because I had the experience. I was the silent force, the one pulling the strings from the shadows, and that gave me power. Later, I learned just how bad things really were. Ben had been sending out proposals to clients without properly vetting them, and 2 of our biggest accounts had already pulled out. I didn't even need to ask who the clients were. I already knew. These were clients I had worked with, built relationships with, and Ben had somehow managed to screw it up. The fallout was just beginning. I could feel it, like a storm rolling in on the horizon. I didn't say anything to Ben about it. He already had enough on his plate, and I wasn't about to give him the satisfaction of knowing I had it all figured out. But I couldn't shake the feeling that things were spiraling faster than he or the company could handle. And just like that, the wheels started turning in my head. If Ben couldn't handle the weight of this role, then it was only a matter of time before I'd have the chance to take back what was rightfully mine. Word got around fast. One of our major accounts, Marco Giordano's competitor, the McLeod Group, was considering walking. They didn't like the direction Ben had taken, didn't like the changes to their proposal, didn't like the fact that he was still trying to sell them on things they'd never agreed to. I knew it was just a matter of time before the floodgates opened, one client after another deciding they weren't going to stick around for Ben's youthful energy to wear off. And sure enough, one crisis meeting after another landed in my lap. Even though I was technically supposed to stay in the background, I was the one getting called in to smooth things over. I was the one fixing the messes, talking clients off the ledge, and reassuring everyone that this was just a bump in the road. But I wasn't stupid. I knew it wasn't a bump. It was a cliff. And we were already halfway over it. Ben was cracking. His frustration was palpable. I could see it in the way he stood at the front of the room, his shoulders slumped, his hands fumbling with papers like he wasn't sure where to go next. He started questioning everything, his decisions, his leadership, even his ability to handle the pressure. The cracks in his facade were widening, and I could tell he was running on fumes. I wasn't feeling any sympathy for him. If anything, I was just getting fed up. I wasn't the one who'd made these mistakes, but I was the one fixing them. Every time something went wrong, every time Ben tripped over his own feet, they turned to me. Not because I was still in charge, hell no, but because I was the only one who knew how to make things right. One afternoon, Greg called me into his office. He sat behind his desk, his face tight, like he was already anticipating what I was going to say. He didn't waste time. If things don't improve soon, he started, his voice low, we might have to reevaluate the direction the company's going. Reevaluate? That was corporate speak for, we're sinking and we need a scapegoat. I wasn't about to be that scapegoat, not when I knew exactly what was going wrong. Ben was sinking this ship, and Greg was too blind to see it. I couldn't hold back anymore. I kept my tone even, but I didn't sugarcoat it. Ben's not cut out for this. He's missing key things, he's not connecting with the team, and he's making decisions that are driving clients away. Greg didn't respond immediately. He just stared at me, weighing my words, before finally nodding. I know things are difficult right now, but we're all in this together. Just keep doing what you can. Keep doing what I can. I wanted to scream. I was doing everything, and still they were letting Ben drive us into the ground. But I bit my tongue. It wasn't time to blow up just yet. Instead, I started taking notes. I started writing down every mistake Ben made, every decision that led us closer to disaster. I was already setting the stage for my next big move. If I couldn't stop this ship from sinking, I was going to be the one who took over when it inevitably did. I wasn't playing the short game anymore. I was letting things crumble slowly, giving it just enough time to burn itself out. And when it did, I'd be there, waiting, ready to take control. Then, during one of our all-hands meetings, it happened. Ben finally cracked under the pressure. He was stumbling over his words, trying to explain away the issues with one of our biggest clients, when his face twisted in frustration. It's all going wrong, he muttered, his voice breaking slightly. He shot a glance in my direction. And frankly, I don't know who to blame anymore, but it feels like we're cleaning up someone else's mess. I froze. I could feel the weight of the room shift. Everyone's eyes darted between Ben and me, sensing something was off. Ben didn't stop there. Look, it's not just me. A lot of the issues go back to what was happening before I got here. He didn't say my name outright, but it was clear what he was implying. He was blaming me. Ben's attempt to blame me for everything was the final straw. I saw through the desperation in his eyes, the way his voice wavered like he wasn't sure anyone would believe him. But it didn't matter. He was trying to take me down to cover for his own incompetence. He had to. He couldn't let himself be the one to fail, not after everything he'd tried to convince everyone he was. I wanted to confront him right there, in that meeting, but I kept my mouth shut. There was no point in getting into it with him. He wasn't worth the energy. But what I hadn't counted on was the next step. Greg. The call came the next day. He wanted to discuss the situation. I already knew what that meant. He wasn't calling me in to offer support. He was calling me in to tell me to reconcile with Ben, to help him lead the team back on track. I walked into Greg's office, and before I even sat down, he was already talking, his voice calm, rehearsed. Look, we need to get this under control. Ben's feeling the pressure, and I didn't let him finish. My patience was gone. Ben's not fit for this job. I cut him off, my voice sharp, my blood starting to heat. He doesn't know what he's doing, Greg. I've been the one keeping this division afloat while he's been out there pretending to have all the answers. This isn't just a rough patch. This is his complete lack of experience showing. Greg stared at me, his face unreadable, but his eyes flickered with something close to frustration. You don't understand. Things are complicated right now. No, I said, leaning forward. What's complicated is that you're letting a kid run the company when you have someone sitting right here who could turn this all around. You're getting snowed, Greg. Ben's got his supporters now, and they're pushing you to the side. You know it, and I know it. I'm being edged out while he gets all the credit for something he's barely holding together. Greg was quiet for a long moment, his fingers drumming on the desk. I know you're frustrated, but no, I said, cutting him off again, my voice low and hard. I'm done with this. There was no way I was going to sit back any longer, waiting for him to reevaluate the direction the company was going. Ben had already made his play. He'd blame me to save face, and now Greg was asking me to clean up his mess, to let him have another shot at leading this team, while I sat back and watched it all fall apart. I could feel the walls closing in, but I wasn't going down without a fight. If they thought I was going to go quietly, they had another thing coming. I walked out of Greg's office, my mind already made up. The next morning, I submitted my resignation. It was quick, clean, no drawn-out speeches, no emotional goodbyes, just a short note, clear, to the point, and final. But I wasn't just leaving. I wasn't walking away from this company empty-handed. I was taking something with me. I had relationships with clients who trusted me, and I was damn sure they weren't going to let Ben's mess derail what I had built with them. I knew exactly what I was going to do next. I was going to take a few of the best clients with me, start my own firm, and build something new, on my terms. I wasn't just quitting. I was setting myself up for a comeback. And when I did, I'd make damn sure I never had to answer to Ben, or anyone like him, again. I stepped out of the company for good, and as I walked away from that building, there was a strange sense of finality to it. It was bittersweet, sure. I'd given 16 years of my life to that place, but it also felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I was ready for the next thing. I'd already started my own consulting firm, a move I'd been planning for months, and I wasn't about to look back. A few key clients had followed me out the door. Marco Giordano was one of them, along with a handful of others who knew I could deliver, even if the rest of the company couldn't. The first few months weren't easy. Long hours, constant hustle, the kind of grind where every day felt like a battle. But I was building something on my terms. The work was hard, but it was mine. I was no longer playing by someone else's rules, no longer trying to fix someone else's mistakes. Every day, I felt more and more in control. Slowly, former colleagues from the old company started reaching out to me. They were fed up with the chaos and the direction things were heading. One by one, I brought them in, helping to rebuild the team I'd once led. They trusted me. They knew I could lead them to something better. A few weeks later, I met with Marco Giordano again, this time as a consultant. He was impressed with what I'd done. He could see the new direction I was taking, the way I was reshaping the company from the ground up. And when the meeting ended, he committed to a long-term deal. It felt good, damn good. It was a win, not just for me, but for all the people who had stuck with me, the ones who had seen what I was capable of, the ones who knew I'd always put them first. The final blow to the old company came when Greg called. I knew what he wanted before I even answered. I've been thinking about it, and I think it's time we bring you back, he said. We need someone with your experience to lead us through this. Ben's not working out, and I didn't let him finish. I'd been waiting for this moment, and now it felt like a waste of time. I'm not coming back, I said, my voice calm but firm. "You've had your shot. You've made your bed, Greg. Now you're going to have to lie in it." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I could hear the frustration in Greg's silence, the realization that things were falling apart without me. But I didn't care. I was done. As I stood there, looking out the window of my new office, I knew I'd won. I'd walked away from their chaos, from their endless excuses, and now I was building something better, something real. The phone buzzed. I picked it up, half expecting another call from Greg, but it wasn't him. It was a message from Ben. "They've let me go. They're looking for a new leader." I couldn't help it. I smiled.